And we actually have a very full schedule today. So I'm going to be enforcing people's time limits on their sections. So sorry in advance for cutting people off, but we've got a lot of stuff to get through. So that said, let's go ahead and get right into our demo. Amit is going to be demonstrating krew, the kube control plugin, or kubectl plugin, or however you want to pronounce that. So Amit.
Hello there. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. Can everyone see my screen okay? Okay, thank you so much. Hello, folks. I'm going to talk about the krew, the package manager for kubectl plugins. Let me go into the full screen mode. Okay, so we developed the package manager for kubectl plugins at Google, and today I'll be giving a demo of that. My name is Amit Balkan. You can find me on GitHub and Twitter as Amit B. So in 30 seconds or less, kubectl plugins are stable as of 1.12. It makes it possible to extend the kubectl plugins with new commands. Let's say you have an executable named kubectl-foo in your path, and then you can invoke it like kubectl space foo as a subcommand of kubectl. So this is what kubectl plugins are. Why are plugins useful? I want to give 2 examples of scenarios. So let's say you want to extend kubectl with extra functionality that still feels like part of kubectl. So imagine we had a plugin named kubectl-service catalog or svcat or something like that. So this could be an addition to kubectl functionality without adding any code into kubectl. Or let's say you work at a company that wants to encapsulate their workflows into kubectl instead of running a bunch of shell scripts. So for example, I have an example here that says kubectl delete orphan pods. Maybe you have like a 3-4 line bash script that does this, or you can just package in a kubectl command and provide it to your developers by installing this on every single developer machine. So when we looked at the kubectl plugin space early on, one of the few areas that we realized is when this feature goes out to the people using kubectl, so users will want to discover plugins. And then they will probably need a way to install these plugins. This could be their package manager. They could be just copy pasting some binaries around. And they probably want to also keep these plugins up to date. Similarly, developers probably will want to make their plugins discoverable. So if you don't know any 5 kubectl plugins today, that's not your fault. That's because we don't have a good discoverability story around the plugins. And developers will probably want to figure out how can I package my plugin for multiple platforms like Windows, Linux, Mac OS. So we developed krew at Google in the summer of 2018. The project was started by me and our intern, Luke Burchard. He's LBB on GitHub. So krew is a plugin manager for kubectl. It's like homebrew, the brew command, but it's for kubectl, so that's hence the name. And what krew does is searching the plugins, installing plugins, upgrading plugins, and removing plugins from your system. So we took a lot of shortcuts to avoid being an actual package manager. So we're trying to intentionally avoid a lot of the aspects of being the non-trivial parts of being a package manager. So we're trying to not to invent a new package manager, but rather a more minimalistic version to distribute plugins. So krew has been already open source. We didn't announce it officially until today, and there are about 200 stars on GitHub repo. So if you go to github.com/google-container-tool/krew, you'll be able to find the krew source code there and play with it right away. And today we have over 20 plugins distributed through krew, and that number is pretty huge actually because there are not a whole lot of plugins today. So I'm gonna quickly give a demo. Let me switch to my terminal here. So I have installed krew to my computer. Krew itself is a plugin. So if I do kubectl krew, I will be getting krew commands. So when I type kubectl krew search, I'll be able to see all the plugins that are available on my system, on the plugin index, not on my system, sorry. So this means I can choose any of these plugins and install into my computer as long as it's a supported plugin. So if I do kubectl krew install, I'm just going to choose one of them like RBAC view here. When I hit return, this is going to the plugin index, figuring out what the plugin is, downloading it, and then telling me, hey, you can now run this command kubectl RBAC view to do something, whatever that plugin does. I actually don't know what it does, so I'm not going to run it. So as you see here, I just installed the plugin. I can choose any of the plugins up there and install it to my machine as well. So similarly, when it comes to upgrade the plugins, I can just type kubectl krew upgrade, and I will be upgrading all my plugins. Or I can just do kubectl krew remove RBAC view, and then the plugin goes away. So this is what you would expect from a simple package manager that with install, upgrade, and such commands. So I'm going to go back to the slides to explain a little bit about what krew does. All right. So why would you have something like krew to package your, do plugin management for you if, all it takes to add just binaries to your path environment variable, right? So you're totally right. You can totally use apt-get, brew, or go-get, however you want to install plugins on your machines. But krew actually gives a single way to install plugins and keep them up to date in your machine. So especially for plugin developers, you'll be packaging your plugins for many different platforms. For example, if you're developing a, I don't know, plugin in Rust, you have to package it for Windows, figure out what is the Windows package manager, and then package it for Linux. And maybe like that means having RPMs and deb packages for all these things. And maybe you're not an expert in doing such things. So krew just makes it easy for both users and developers. And then krew itself is a plugin, so you're calling krew through kubectl as well. And krew perhaps someday can go into kubectl in a form of plugin or something like that. So I want to talk a little bit about where do all these plugins come from, right? So right now we have a centralized package index that is great for discoverability because all the plugins are in one place, but that's not so great because you need to enforce certain stuff like, is this plugin good enough, actually? Like, is this plugin secure? Are you trying to steal people's credentials? Is your name descriptive enough? Are you just trying to put put dibs on a name or something? So we're trying to figure out how will that work like in a centralized environment, but we also really want to add a third-party package index like apt repos that you add to your computer manually, or brew tabs that can be just like any other GitHub repo. So this plugin index, I want to give a quick preview of that. But before I go there, publishing your plugins on krew is actually pretty easy. You develop a plugin, and then you write a plugin manifest. This is a YAML file. I'm going to show that shortly. And then you just make a pull request to the index repo, and then you're good to go. So I want to go back to my browser and show how the krew package index looks like. So this is the package index we have right now. And then we have a directory named plugins. And then if you go in there, you're going to see all the plugins that we have. And this is the manifest for each of these plugins. For example, if I click on RBAC view, this is the manifest for the RBAC view plugin. And I'm going to explain what that is like shortly. Okay, so this is a package manifest. I know it's a bit complicated. It's still in early stages, but it's been working for us fine for the past 6 months or so. And we've been able to package 20 plus plugins with this. So what we're looking at here, on the top, there's the name of the plugin. This determines the actual name that the kubectl command that you're going to have. And then we basically specify a bunch of platforms. So in this example, I have a one platform spec here, and then the platform spec has a selector. So it says which OS and architecture you want to install this. So in this case, we're installing on Windows x64 machines. And then for this platform, we specify where do I get this plugin from. And then here I have a Torvald URL that is a public URL. And then I have a SHA that just verifies that integrity of that. And then in the file section, I'm describing, okay, inside this tar file, when I extract this tar file, which files should I copy out of that tar file to the install directory? And then I'm copying all the bin/exe files here, as you can see. And then in the bin path, I'm saying this is the entry point to my plugin executable. So we're going to go and link this thing as kubectl-rbec lookup.exe in this case. So this person actually developed a plugin in Go. So and now they're able to distribute this plugin on both Mac and Windows and Linux through krew. So what doesn't krew do? It doesn't install external dependencies, such as if you're writing your plugin in Python and you don't have Python on your machine, krew is not going to be able to do anything for you. So far, most of the plugins are written in Go and Bash, so this actually helps us a lot. But if you have external dependencies, we're going to just show you a post-install message, just like when I installed that plugin earlier, that says you, hey, you need this JQ tool, or you need an OpenSSL to run this thing. So right now we're relying on that. and we don't know what to do about the version skew between kubectl and the plugins themselves. For example, a lot of plugins call back into kubectl, and this is a problem if you have an older version of kubectl after 1 or 2 years, and we don't do anything regarding security scanning. Like if you install a plugin today, you are entirely responsible for installing a third-party software on your machine that you haven't vetted, and we're not vetting those things either. And we have a centralized package index today, and this is bringing a lot of problems. We have to go and discuss with the plugin developers. Like we have to tell them your name is not good enough. Nobody will be able to understand what your plugin does from your name and stuff like that. So and this won't work for vendors like say Google or Red Hat or Microsoft that may want to distribute plugins, because they will want they want to have full control over where their packages come from. So we need to give them a not centralized package index, basically.
So if you can wind this up, you're at time.
Yeah. So in conclusion, if you're interested in krew, please come to the 6 CLI meetings. We're discussing about where to take the plugins and how we're going to do this package management thingy. And krew is still being developed, although it's ready to try it out. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter as AhmetB or ahmetb@google.com. This will be all my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions during the meeting today, but feel free to ask Ahmet questions either on Slack, ask them in the group chat here in this, or in SIG CLI, presumably?
That's right,
yeah. Or in SIG CLI. And that said, let's move on to the next section of our presentation, which is the release updates. So Aaron, our release lead for 1.14, if you can start and talk about the current release cycle.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I am Aaron of Sigbeard. I am your 1.14 release lead. Today's cat t-shirt represents my state of mind again. I have no idea. Oh, can you see because of the hair? I have no idea what I'm doing, okay? That is where we're at. So now that you have, that's pretty much all you need to know, really. But just in case that's not enough, I'm going to share a Google Chrome window, which has the meeting notes, which I will be using as my talking notes. So we are at week 1 for 1.14. The upcoming milestones are that by tomorrow, the end of week 1, I'd like to have the release schedule finalized. And by January 18th, the end of week 2, I would like to have the release team finalized. That's all release shadows. We already have all the lead roles taken care of. And then looking a little bit further out, at the end of month, at week 4, I would like for enhancements freeze to happen. So this is all proposed in our release schedule here. I'll go to the files changed section. I added everybody as owners, and then I'll go ahead and view the file. Let's talk about the TLDRs here. So you'll start hearing warnings about these in the weekly updates, but code freeze I'm forecasting as March 7th, and the release itself I'm forecasting as March 25th. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, this PR is the place to discuss them. What are we going to do differently this time around? I've got it listed here, but I'm actually going to go back to the meeting notes to talk about it. But I will also say that I'm trying to document what the different phases of the release are. I don't know if this markdown table is really useful as a consumable artifact that everybody reads and understands. So I'm trying to sort of describe what enhancements freeze means, what code freeze means, stuff like that. Okay, going back to the community meeting notes. So in terms of finalizing the release team, Stephen Augustus helped put together a questionnaire on, so a bunch of people have volunteered to be shadows on this issue. The next step was for Stephen Augustus to put out a questionnaire and send that out. Anyone interested should be posting on this issue. Stephen's going to post the questionnaire on KDev. I'm sure he's saying stuff on chat that I can come back to follow up. But leads are going to talk to shadows based on the results of this questionnaire. By Friday of next week, I hope we're there. Okay, let's see here. So what will we do differently? Everything must have a cap. I talked about this last week. I'm talking about it now. I'm going to talk about it at SIG Architecture in about 45 minutes. I talked about it at the Contributor Summit at KubeCon. Everything must have a cap. If you want something to land in this release, It can't just have an enhancement tracking issue. It's got to have a KEP. Even if it didn't have a KEP before, it must have a KEP now. That KEP must, at a minimum, have a checklist of criteria that says what's alpha, what's beta, what does stable even mean. I'm looking to SIG architecture for some guidance on what that checklist should look like. But I, as a release lead, would really, really like to see a test plan and an upgrade downgrade plan so that I can know where to look to see if your feature is actually working as advertised and if we have taken the concerns of users into consideration. I kind of have the feeling that it's unrealistic to have every enhancement issue have a KEP and all of those KEPs to be fully reviewed and vetted with a test plan and an upgrade plan by the end of January. I'd certainly aspire for us to get there, but if you want to come hash out the details, because that's where the devil lives, come to the SIG architecture meeting in 45 minutes. I have it linked. I have the meeting notes linked in these meeting notes. Second thing, there will be no such thing as code slush. It's just an additional set of labels and milestones that I have to add to my PRs or issues, because why? I'm not really sure. In talking to previous release team members, code slush has really served for you, the community, as a heads up that brace yourselves, code freeze is coming. And honestly, we kind of decided that maybe a meme with why am I blanking on his name? Anyway, the brace yourselves meme. Look for that to come out about a week before code freeze. Code slush has historically meant that it's a bad idea to try landing a really large feature or a really large refactoring a week before code freeze, because everybody else who is trying to get their stuff in will not like you. So we, the release team, have at our discretion the ability to reject PRs that do that. So we're going to ask you all to be mindful of that. If you want a date to tie to consider yourself, when should I decide if I can't get it in by now, it's not going in until next release. Take a look at the release schedule. We start increasing the cadence of the release team burn down meetings a week before code freeze. Something we've done in some releases past, but we hadn't done in 1.13 and 1.12. I'm going to be using a milestone to track our work. Thank you. It was Ned Stark who said brace yourself. I appreciate that, chat. So I'm using a milestone in the SIG release repo to talk about the release team's work. We'll see how this works out. I'm considering doing things like code freeze, enhancements freeze, different builds of the release being issues that are in here that we can link to when we're talking about this is blocking that, stuff like that. Other thing, new year, new team. We're going to go ahead and purge the Kubernetes milestone maintainers team. Steven's taking the lead on this, and we'll be going through this on Friday. The milestone maintainers team is the team that lets you use the /milestone command. It means we trust that you're kind of generally keeping up with what your SIG is doing or what is landing in the release. As such, membership criteria into this team are you're a SIG release lead or chair, you're a release team member, or you are a chair or technical lead of a SIG. If somebody else needs to be on this team, like for example, if you're a SIG chair and you don't have time for this, but you want to delegate this to somebody else, please come talk to us. Let's see here. I think that's basically it for my update. Any questions? Sweet. I will hand off for patch release stuff then.
Okay, thank you. I'll just go over the patch releases unless somebody from the patch release team wants to speak. Tim, did you want to take this, or Pengfei, or okay? So first thing is the patch release team, which is now a team, is trying to actually schedule patch releases, barring unexpected security updates, of course. You can see a link there from the notes to a document where they are trying to assemble a schedule. So we will have some more predictability in the future. As part of that schedule, 1.13.2 is due out today. I think that's still on schedule, as far as I know. And the cut for 1.12.5 is planned for next Thursday. So if you have patches that need to be cherry picked into 1.12, please try to get them in the next 3 or 4 days. No updates on 1.11 as far as I know. So next up, we have our contributor tip of the week. And that is Aaron again.
Hi, I'm back again. Okay, now I'm your contributor tip of the week guy, not your release lead. So I want to talk to you a little bit about project boards. And again, I'm going to share my screen while I do this. And I'm going to use the meeting notes as my my notes and links to click thing again. Wow, Zoom's acting really weird. Sorry, just a second. There we go. So you may be familiar with the fact that repositories can have project boards, but the people who are allowed to create project boards for a given repository are the people who have write access to that repository. I feel like that's not super friendly with a really large community such as this. We've tried to make so much more of the project accessible to people who don't have write access to the 100 and something repos that exist in this project. So I just wanted to point out to you that anybody who is an org member of Kubernetes can create an org level project, which is really cool because projects can include issues or PRs from any repo, I think anywhere, but it's kind of helpful if they're tied in the same org because you can link to them pretty nicely. So I'll just walk through one example here, the contributor experience board. I'm walking through the example of their permissions. So their permissions are pretty familiar to anybody who's familiar with repo permissions. I do have to do this weird dance through a couple different things to get to settings, but every project board has visibility settings and it has org level permissions for members. So in this case, contributor experience has locked their board down so that org members can read the project. They can see the issues on there, they can see where the cards are, but they cannot move them from place to place. Next, there are team level permissions. So the community admins team and the community maintainers team have admin and write privileges to this project. And then finally, you can add direct collaborators to this project board. So Caleb has admin access to this board, for example. This is really, really similar to the way repo permissions are set up. So it seems kind of intuitive to me. So I walked you through SIG contributor. So the other thing there is the order in which I walked through everything: higher permissions, higher in the list, override, lower permissions, lower in the list. I couldn't make somebody explicitly have read-only access if they happen to be an org member and you've set your board up such that org members have admin access to your board. Contributor experience uses their board on a recurring basis at their meeting. So start of every meeting, they sort of walk through this, and this is how you know what the SIG is up to, what it's blocked on, what it's planning to do, what it's actually doing right now. That's pretty helpful. In their case, they've locked it down so that only the SIG leadership, aka chairs and TLs, can really keep track of what's going on. It can be a little weird to have to look at the activity tab to keep tabs with like who's done what. By the way, now that I'm looking at the activity tab, this is sort of weird. Kate's CI robot is doing stuff, and it's got this little automation tag next to it. So it turns out if you go to different columns, I'll start with the to-do column, and I click on Manage Automation. GitHub provides a couple automation presets for columns. So it's a little bit limited in what it offers. It only offers to-do, in progress, and done. But in the to-do case, any new issue that's added to this project will automatically get added to the to-do column, which is kind of convenient. I'll start mucking around with the settings and something that doesn't have them, just so you can see that like the in progress setting, for example, could say things will move to that column once there's a pending approval or approval by reviewers and stuff. I'm not sure how well this will play with our project, considering that we kind of do the LGTM and approve dance out of band, but it looks neat. And then you can also have issues like move to closed or merged, issues move to a done column when they're closed or when PRs are merged automatically. This seems like it could be useful for some of you who want to keep track of work organically. So another way we're going to try and do this is I talked a couple times with a couple folks about deflaking Kubernetes end-to-end tests at KubeCon. If you're interested in this, we'd love to have you come help out. This issue is the umbrella issue or the trailhead for this. It was something we talked about at the 113 retrospective. And Maria Natala, the CI Signal lead for 114, has taken the lead in creating a project board, which she could do because she just happens to be an org member. And we've added everything that happens to have the area deflake label to it. So we can chew through this to sort of create a prioritized backlog and then figure out what's the most important thing to work on. And any org member who wants to help out can drag it to in progress, so on and so forth. So finally, That's cool, but that's a lot of manual clicking around. It would be great if we had some automation to help us out here. So we have one community member who's working to see if we can add issues via prow commands. Since we're so used to slash milestoning stuff, maybe we could slash project something. That seems like that could be neat. I think another really useful thing could be the idea of automatically adding issues or PRs to a project board based on a GitHub query. Like I said, everything in the deflaking thing happens to have an area label, but that's really just to help a human triage by like issuing a GitHub query and then seeing what's not on the project board. So we have somebody, there's some discussion of how this could be done, and we have somebody who's linked a PR as a work in progress down here. Finally, if you're interested in just how we could improve project management in general across the project, there's an umbrella issue here with Matt, Matt Jarvis, who's volunteered to sort of take the lead in investigating different things, including using tools provided by vendors such as Waffle or what have you. I personally am also trying to play around with syncing things to Airtable, because I believe that worked well for the docs team as part of the 1.12 release. Shout outs to Zach Arnold for doing that. So anyway, these are just all ways that these are tools that you, the community, can use to make project management a little bit easier. If you feel like you're back, it's the new year, you want to get ready to get going with your SIG, and you want some place to plan the work, and you don't want to use yet another spreadsheet, maybe this can help you out. That's been your contributor tip of the week.
Thank you, Aaron. And again, if you have questions, ask them in chat. We're going to move straight into Klaus Mung of SIG Scheduling is going to present on their new co-scheduling proposal and KEP that they've started work on. So Klaus?
Yeah, okay. Okay. Hi, this is Klaus. I'm from SIG Scheduling. So I'm going to give an overall introduction about the cost scheduling here. Yeah. I think the cost scheduling is from some batch workload. For example, some MPI job, some training job of machine learning. So for the requirement the default requirement to the scheduling is that some pod would like to get the results together. So that's in a short word, that means all or nothing. For example, if one job want to get 10 CPU, they need to get all of them to run several pods. So if they don't get enough results, the whole several pod will not start together. So it's this is the requirement to the batch workload, because this workload need to exchange data or exchange some information between each other. So they need to be started together. I think that this is the original requirement of this KEP. But when we try to discuss or achieve this target, we have several cases and several discussion here, in the KEP. So here we go. So it is better. In the cost scheduling, we also have two cases here. Now the first one is is kind of a hard requirement. For example, for MPI job, for example, it need 10 CPU and have 10 pod, one CPU for each. And another one is something like Spark or something like a streaming job. It's just need to start a part of pod. For example, it just need start one driver with part of executor, the job can run. Yeah, so this is a different case. In the cost scheduling, we also support such kind of case to run the different workloads. Yeah. In the cost scheduling, we introduce a new kind here. We call it a pod group. We have spec. In pod group, we have pod spec and pod status like the other types. In the pod group spec, I think the major member is minimum members of this pod group. This is defined how many pods should be started at least for to run the whole job. As the red part, this is the example of how example on how to use a pod group for the existing tab. For example, in this case, I use a job as an example. For in job templates, this will going to have a new. We introduce a new annotation. Yes, we call it a group name. When the controller create a pod, it will pass this annotation to the pod. So in the scheduler, we will consider all these pods need to be belong to the same pod group. Yes, and in the spec, they define this at least 6 pods to run together. So in the scheduling, we will achieve that the 6 pod will start together, at least allocate the resource together, or if they don't start anyone, if they didn't get enough results. So here is the example to cover the 2 different workload type. Now the first one, if this minimal member is 8, so it is equal to the total number of pod size. Another one, the minimal member can be less than the total number. So we are going to make sure the 6 pod will start together. So the other 2 pod will be on demand. For example, if they have enough resources, it will get scheduled. If they don't have enough resources, the other 2 pod may be pending. Yeah. We talk another topic is that we need to work together with quota. Yeah, because if controller create a pod based on the quota, this doesn't mean scheduler. It doesn't mean it always get the results. Yes, in this case, we will part of pod will be created for the 2 job, because the quota there is a restriction from the quota. So because only part of job are created, so in the scheduler part we cannot do anything, because a new pod will not be created, and each of the job cannot have enough pending workload to start. Yeah, so we have several discussions here, and we think it is better to have a total resource. That means how many resources are requested from the whole job. In this tag, this means how many resources we are going to use for pod group. Yes, in this part we are going to create some dimension controller to resolve the quota in the to resolve some resource in quota. So if pod group is created, we will make sure that there is enough quota for this pod group. So every pod will be created. The other feature is that for some jobs such as MPI, if one pod is failed or killed because some reason, the whole job should be restarted. Because just restart one pod, the whole job cannot be work except they have some checkpoint here. But in general, we think the whole job needs to be restarted. So we are going to also introduce a pod group controller here, so we can, if one pod failed, so if there any pod failed, the pod group controller will have to restart the whole pod group, so they can restart the scheduling and try to yeah, for now, I think a call scheduling, basic feature of call scheduling is implemented in Kubernetes, a sub project of SIG scheduling. In the 0.2, at least 0.2, we have such kind of implementation in Kubernetes. Yeah, and for the pod group controller, such kind of life cycle management. For example, if the case I described above is handled by pod group controller, it's ongoing. We are trying to do that in SQL release. Yeah. Another one is a quota. I get several feedback about the quota part because they use the quota to restrict how many resources can be used for each tenant.
Okay. So we're running low on time. If you could wind up the presentation in this cap, that would be great.
Yes, I think just a 1 or 2 page. Yeah.
Okay.
Another one is starvation about the huge job, because for now we reserve resources for the job. So that's gonna be impact the resource utilization if we keep backfill some small job. There will gonna be a starvation of the huge job. So we are going to also discuss such kind of propose similar interfaces one. Yeah, and we also have some other features in the cool batch for the batch workload. So such as queue, DRF, permission, something like that. Yeah. So you can try cool batch for your batch workload. Yeah, the batch scheduler. Yeah. I think this is all for me. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And if people are interested in co-scheduling and have feedback on this feature, please join the SIG scheduling meeting or channel and provide feedback to Klaus and the team on the feature.
Okay.
So thank you very much for your presentation and bring us up to date on the co-scheduling effort.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah?
Okay, bye.
Okay, thank you very much. So that said, we're going to move on to our SIG presentations. So let's start out with SIG project management with Stephen Augustus.
Hey, can you hear me okay? Awesome. All right, I'm sharing my screen. Trying to share my screen. All right. All right, so hey, I am Stephen Augustus. I am the Kubernetes Product Management Chair. I'm going to give you a quick update about what we've been working on the last few cycles and kind of what the goals are moving forward in 2019. So just a few slides. What we did last cycle. We also, by the way, we also have intro and deep dive talks from KubeCon Seattle, which are available on YouTube along with the rest of the KubeCon talks. So those links are down there. I will also post the link for this slide deck in the chat in a bit, or rather in the agenda. Yeah. So SIGPM, we kicked out a survey just to kind of query what was going on in the Kubernetes community, what people are looking to do, how they're implementing Kubernetes, the size of companies, whether or not they're using public clouds, private clouds, on premise, just kind of getting an idea of what the space is. So we actually talked about that in the SIGPM intro. Which is linked below. The presentation is available on that link. That's right there. Again, I will post this in the agenda. So we also heavily worked on the KEP process, joint effort between myself, Caleb, Chase Singer Dumars. So kind of SIG PM, SIG architecture mashup. So KEP 1A is the MetaKEP implementation. So it's basically how do we implement the idea of and put the process and procedures in place for how we actually use KEPs. So we started off on that, and around that we kicked out a project board, an umbrella issue for KEPs. So the things that we actually need to do, one of them included, so you'll see below, one of them included actually migrating migrating KEPs away from the community repo. So we did a huge forklift of that into the enhancements repo. We renamed the features repo into enhancements. So for anyone who is not aware, and I think that might be a few people, we came up with this idea of what enhancements are. And so KEPs are essentially created. So KEPs stand for Kubernetes Enhancement Proposals, and KEPs are essentially created to track multi-release efforts, right? So it's essentially the aggregate of multiple features, right? Things that you can't get done in just one release. So an example of that might be something like Azure availability zones, right? So that's our topology aware scheduling, right? So topology aware scheduling, the one bringing forth the idea, and then two, being able to implement that across multiple clouds and on premise, right? That's not something that can simply get done in one cycle, right? So things that can't get done in one cycle, we call an enhancement, right? So those, the idea is that they would be bundled as multiple features, right? And those features, essentially, we have a proposal that dictates the summary, the motivation, the goals for that enhancement, the non-goals for the enhancement, the graduation criteria. So as Aaron was mentioning, for the next release cycle 114, we're planning on making KEPs mandatory. So we have said for a while, and that's in the documentation, which I'm going to be working on changing, that KEPs are kind of in beta stage, and and it's of a SIG's own volition to decide whether or not they pick up the KEP process. That is going away. KEPs are required. You should always be filing KEP for anything that has cross-SIG, cross-project impact. So we'll also be discussing that in SIG architecture in a few minutes. Yeah. So the KEP 1A is mostly implemented at this point. You can check that out on the umbrella issue. The enhancements idea has come forth. We have started to categorize the open design proposals and KEPs as kind kept. So there's a new label for that that's available in Kubernetes community, as well as Kubernetes enhancements. So I think the next step for SIG PM is we're going to start revamping the SIG PM charter. And the SIG PM charter is one of the earlier charters before there was an idea of charters. So we need to bring it in line with what the steering committee is looking for. We're going to start cleaning up the process documentation. So what the KEP workflow actually looks like, the entry and exit criteria. So how do we bring a KEP from proposed to or draft to implementable and things like that, or approved or rejected or deferred. So we're going to talk about exactly how to bring things into those states. In addition to that, we also want to very clearly lay down who owns what, how we actually designate who owns the process of KEPs, as well as who owns a KEP once it starts kicking off, right? So whether that's the SIG, whether it's SIG architecture, whether it's SIG PM, we're going to start laying down documentation for that stuff. We're going to move ahead with more of the migrations. Yay! So KEPs to Kubernetes enhancements, that has already happened. From my standpoint, I think the next piece is to move design proposals. So we have a design proposals repository that is in Kubernetes community right now that is a melange of stale proposals, as well as things that are still actively being worked on, things that have actually already been implemented. So we have to kind of start, getting rid of the cruft over there and deciding what we can and can't move or what needs to be migrated into KEP. So we're going to be talking about that this year, as well as so within the design proposals repository, as well as kind of scattered around a few other directories in Kubernetes community are architectural designs and diagrams, and we want to bring those forth, make them more discoverable and available to the community in an easy place. Will that be Kubernetes enhancements? I don't know yet, but possibly. So we've got the KEP CLI tool, which we talk about in the, seriously, go watch the KubeCon talks there. I think they're great. But we have a KEP CLI library that we've been working on. So hats off to Caleb for crunching 11,000 plus lines of code for that. That essentially allows you to build a workflow around tooling, right? So being able to propose, initialize the KEP, propose the KEP, have the KEP approved, right? So the idea is that eventually we'll be able to move this workflow of like reviewing KEPs and generating the metadata for KEPs and figuring out what the next KEP number is, or maybe doing away with that altogether. Bring that into automation, right? And bring that into tooling, because we like tooling, we like automation. We're engineers, we have engineer mindsets. So let's figure out a way to make our lives easier in product management as well, right? So eventually, this is a little long-term goal is to bring KEPs onto the contributor site. So right, once the contributor site goes live, we want to be able to aggregate each of the KEPs that live in Kubernetes enhancements and be able to present that in a format that's easily viewable and consumable for not just people who are actively working on KEPs, but also people who are just stopping by and want to understand like how the Kubernetes project is evolving and what features and enhancements are coming out in the next few years, right? So bringing that to the contributor site is a huge step. We want.
Stephen, can you wind up? We're running low on time.
Awesome. All right. Okay, cool. So KEP's going hopefully GA in 1.15. That is tentative. We want to get rid of the release enhancements and feature tracking spreadsheet. Literally everyone that I've talked to has said that is not a great way of doing things. I agree, as someone who has done that before. And bring forth cross-SIG project tracking, so release planning events as well as cross-project roadmaps. So if you want to talk to me about that, if you want to talk more about that, I will put this up. This is where to find us. Again, these slides will be available in the agenda. So thank you for your time. Later.
Thank you, Stephen. So next up, we have SIG autoscaling. If you want to give us an update on what's going on with autoscaling.
Hello, I'm Marcin. I'm secret of SIG autoscaling. So for those of you who don't know what SIG autoscaling is about, we are responsible for all of the components that adjust your pods and infrastructure to match the current needs. So in particular, we are responsible for horizontal pod autoscaler, cluster autoscaler, and the new vertical pod autoscaler. So what has been going with these components recently? In the couple past months, we significantly improved the algorithm of horizontal pod autoscaler. So now it's significantly faster. It should react faster. It should not have any blackout period. So as soon as your spike comes in, we should add you more pods. In the next couple months, we will expand the HP API so that you will be able to adjust the speed of scaling up and the speed of scaling down. We have a community member that is working on the proposal right now and should be available to the public soon. In cluster autoscaler, we are basically catching up with all of the scheduler new features and bugs. We have been working with scheduling on resolving all of the problems with priorities. They are mostly gone. However, there are a couple of pending issues that need fixing. Vertical pod autoscaler graduated to beta. It's available in Kubernetes/autoscaler repository. So please go and try it. One more thing on cluster autoscaler, we have one new cloud provider available, Alibaba Cloud. So if you are using it, please also give it a try. On the organizational note, Soliros, who has been a SIG lead since very beginning, decided to step down. So I would like to take a moment to thank him for all of the contribution he made during the last years. We haven't selected a replacement yet, but we're working on it. Just a small reminder, we have a meeting every Monday, early in the morning PST. Please check what's the current time what's the right time in your time zone. We kindly invite you to come in if you have any problems or questions or ideas for improving autoscaling. That's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for doing that quickly for that matter. So we have time for SIG Network. Boe, you want to take it away?
Yes. All right. Everyone see the slides?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm assuming you can hear me because you responded.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Bowie from SIG Network to give a community update. Make this short and quick. So we have currently several projects in progress, some for 114. And these are things that have an implementation, have a cap, and basically are moving from one stage to another. So IPv6 support, this was alpha in 1.9. Custom pod DNS policies will be beta in 1.10, and then we're thinking about making it GA in 1.14. Pod readiness gates, which was beta in 1.11, and also thinking about making it GA in 1.14. And SCT support, which was alpha in 1.12. And then finally, load local DNS caching, which was alpha in 1.13 and going to be beta in 1.14. I have all the links there. I don't know if we have time to actually go through the details, but if you're interested in any of these features, there's a link to the CAP. And then please, the thing that we really want is to have feedback, reviews, kind of your experience on how these features are working for you. Now, in terms of major themes for 2019 for the SIG network, we're going to be looking at sort of revamping ingress in the L7 resources. We have a CAP that's open that needs work to move it forward to an implementation of a dual stack implementation for supporting both IPv4 and IPv6. We have a CAP out for node local and topology aware services. Also, we're looking at revamping some pieces of service and endpoints, making them more scalable, making the interface more rational. I think we were called out by Brian Grant in the Contrib Summit, so that was definitely a pointer. We have a sort of a proposal out for specifying how multicast will work with Kubernetes. And of course, supporting Windows is going to be a big thing that cuts across all the networking stuff. And all of these are in more detail in the KubeCon community update, which is in the 2018 slides. In terms of where to find us, we have a bi-weekly meeting every other Thursday. The links are there. We're also on SIG Network Slack. And I talked to some people at the Contrib Summit, and they were asking, what is the best way to get started with SIG Network? So that's something else that we're probably going to be looking into, maybe a contributor guide of sorts for on-ramping people. And that's it.
Wow. Well, thank you. That's a quick summary of particularly given dual network. So thank you very much for bringing us up to date on what SIG Network is doing. From here, we have a few announcements, which I would get to if Google Docs hadn't just frozen on me. There we go. Stephen, do you want to summarize the purge of milestone maintainers?
I
Yes.
feel like, well, I feel like I already covered that for short on time.
Okay. Yeah, we can totally skip that. But short version is we're purging the milestone maintainers group. Yeah, happening this Friday.
And Christoph, also, this is tied into automated GitHub team management.
So Christoph's not here. Now I'm wearing my Christoph hat. As a member of the GitHub management sub-project, which is part of SIG contributor experience and is populated by 6 admins, one of the things we try to do to make our lives easier so we can service you hundreds and hundreds of people is to use automation to manage things. Today, the automation supports automatically managing org membership. We'd like to do the same thing for team membership. What this means is if you are used to being a team maintainer and using the GitHub UI to add people to your team by clicking things, that will no longer be possible. Or actually what's going to happen is when we run our tool, it's going to remove people from teams who aren't in a file that says they should be in that team. We probably have some work to do around documenting this process. We apologize if this is bumpy, but please come file issues on kubernetes.org if this doesn't work for you. And if you have any objections, please respond to the link I put in the meeting notes. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, so a few other things. Paris is reminding us that the CFP for KubeCon Barcelona closes on January 18th. I believe the one for Shanghai closes on January 31st. So new year, new KubeCons, even more KubeCons. There's also a recently scheduled, I think there's a recently scheduled Kube Day in India, but I don't actually have the schedule for that, so look for it. We're revamping the developer guide. See the link in the notes for that. And next week's meeting, we're going to have updates from SIG CLI and SIG Node. So if you are a member of one of those SIGs, please take that back to your SIG meeting and prepare something for next week. That would be great. And then the other thing is we only have demos for this meeting scheduled through the rest of January. And as a result, if you are working on a project in association with Kubernetes or a special new feature or a product that encapsulates Kubernetes or something, please volunteer to do a demo. We want to know what's going on in the ecosystem and get yourself on the schedule. And then last, but certainly not least, shout outs, although I'm going to point out again, if you have a shout out to somebody who did something cool in the Kubernetes community that you want to bring attention to, which you should do because we have lots of cool people who do cool things, please post it in the shout outs channel in Slack. I think there's a shout outs on Discuss, isn't there? Anyway, so that we can include that. This week we actually only have one shout out coming from both myself and from Paris to Noah Kantrowitz, both for making last week in Kubernetes development continue to publish over the holidays, and for fielding contributor questions over the holidays, both of which he continued to do while a lot of the rest of us were mediating family problems. So thank you very much, Noah. And that is it for this week's community meeting. See everybody next week and at the various SIG meetings.